Hello and welcome to the Thursday, April 10th, 2025 edition of the SANS Internet Storm Center's Stormcast. My name is Johannes Ulrich, and today I'm recording from Jacksonville, Florida. Xavier today wrote about obfuscated Python. In this particular case, the exploit first arrived as a simple script that then used PowerShell to download additional Python. Now, what was different about this particular Python script here is that it used PyArmor in order to obfuscate the code. And while Xavier isn't here going through it sort of line by line based on the obfuscation, he at least does show some techniques to get some partial content from the script by doing some behavioral analysis. The problem here again is that the script also doesn't really run in sandboxes very well, so certainly making analysis of these scripts more difficult. PyArmor itself is not necessarily malicious. It's often used for commercial Python scripts in order to obfuscate the inner workings for intellectual property protection and the like. But if anybody has any tips here for Xavier how to better deal with PyArmor obfuscated scripts, please let him know. And we have an interesting vulnerability in CenterStack. CenterStack is made by Gladinet, and it's a product that allows you to expose various file shares like SMB and such via a simple-to-use web interface. Now, this web interface is written in .NET. .NET, you probably have seen it, has these ViewStates. ViewStates may be signed by the server using a machine key. The problem here with CenterStack is that the machine key wasn't properly protected. It's actually a not so terribly unusual vulnerability for these types of applications that rely on the ViewState being protected by a machine key. The vulnerability is now addressed with a patch. The patch also creates a new machine key for us. However, the vulnerability has already been exploited for a few weeks. They're saying sometime in March, exploitation started, or at least started to be detected for this vulnerability. So definitely apply this update quickly. And then we got the updates from Google for Android. This update fixes 62 different vulnerabilities. 2 USB-related vulnerabilities are of particular interest here in that they're both being exploited. One is allowing access to confidential data. The other one in the USB audio component apparently is what Malwarebytes, who has done a little write-up on these 2 exploit vulnerabilities. So that USB audio component vulnerability was apparently used by Serbian law enforcement to gain access to locked Android phones. Definitely want to address these and update your phone as the particular update is becoming available for your particular Android device. And Broadcom released updates for VMware Tenzu. Now, VMware Tanzu has nothing really to do with their virtualization product. It's a part of their sort of business intelligence product. It also includes a backup product, and that's where a lot of the vulnerabilities are located, being patched here. 47 vulnerabilities total, 29 of which apply to the backup and restore component of VMware Tenzu. Many of these vulnerabilities do allow remote code execution, so definitely something that you do want to address quickly. And according to Bleeping Computers, some users are reporting all of a sudden seeing an Inetpub directory on their Windows systems after installing the latest Windows 11 update. This directory is usually used by IIS, by the Internet Information Server, in order to serve files. That component was not installed or enabled on those systems. So for whatever reason, Microsoft decided to create that directory. At this point, it appears to be safe to remove that directory, but overall, it shouldn't really have any impact. There's, of course, a slight chance that if you start putting files in there and then later expose these files via installing IS, you may have a problem. So probably the safe thing to do is just to remove that directory if it's empty, if it's not already used for other purposes on your system. And if you're using WhatsApp, be aware there is a file spoofing vulnerability that was being addressed in WhatsApp. The problem here is that an attacker may send you a file that looks like a harmless image, like a PNG, but actually then turns out to be an executable once saved to your system. And SANS released a new document, the Critical AI Security Guidelines. Now it's version 1.1, but even though it's labeled as version 1.1, it's very much sort of a document in flux, a living document summarizing what you need to do in order to protect your AI workflows. This document still is waiting for user input as well. Given that AI moves so fast, I think it would be just wrong to release something that is considered sort of done and ready as is. So take a look at it. I'll, of course, add a link to the show notes. And if anybody's interested, on Friday, I'll actually be speaking for an ISSA event here in Jacksonville. It'll be a little bit an encore of the sort of Storm Center run through I did for InfraGard a couple weeks ago. If anybody's interested, also link in the show notes if you want to register. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and talk to you again tomorrow.